Awesome. And we are live, I believe. Hopefully we're live. But yeah, so this is what, episode 15. Wow, season 2, episode 15 of the Making Awesome podcast. And we have the I don't even like normally there's like maker extraordinaire, but there's so much to you, Mr. Shorey. But we have the amazing David Shorey here. He's gonna talk all about 3D printing on fabric. And if you are listening audio only, do yourself a favor, go watch this one, because the background and what Dave is going to be showing off, you don't want to miss this. But Dave, give us the backstreet boys, the who you are, the where you're from, the what you did, and as long as you love me.
Okay, so I'm in LA. I'm most known for 3D printing on fabric, although I didn't create it a lot. As far as I can tell, the earliest one was actually an MIT paper on it, but I am known for it because I just keep on trying every permutation possible that I can think of how to get 3D printing on fabric, including resin printing.
You have shown me some of those examples over the past few months. I think we've known each other for about a year now, and I am always floored, absolutely floored, of how amazing this stuff is. It's really, really cool.
Thank you. So,
I mean, so can you talk a little bit about how you got inspired to 3D print on fabric? Because it is clearly not a, it's not an easy thing to do.
So before I was 3D printing on fabric, I was starting to incorporate found objects.
Okay.
So I would use like popsicle sticks and things like that. I would embedding them into the 3D print, pausing the print in the middle of it, making a specific cavity for something, and then continuing the print. Right. So using it like a multimedia tool. So combining multiple things on there. And my mom is actually very much into embroidery, and she does a lot of very different types of embroidery. So she'll actually make Christmas cards embroidering on cardstock.
Whoa.
And making really cool stuff. And she's even using like wood veneer and all kinds of other things. So I brought my 3D printer to show my mom and my dad. And I was like, hey, Mom, do you have a fabric that I can try? So, and I don't know if I had actually seen it beforehand, or it was just something that it was like, well, that was the next permutation of it. And it worked actually much, much better than I expected. At this time, I had one of those little tiny Monoprice minis.
Those are good printers for the money back in the day, man.
Yeah, I don't know how the quality is on that today, but like when I had that, it was a solid little printer,
Yeah, I'm like back when they came out, the mini, the Monoprice, it was Monoprice Maker Select Mini, or MP Mini is what they called it. And they were good back in the day, but when you compare them up to like a Mark 3S or even a Prusa Mini, they got nothing. They got nothing. No auto bed leveling, no filament runout sensors, no 32-bit controllers or anything fancy like that. But that was had to have been, what, 2015, 2016, I would guess?
Probably something around there, maybe 17. It's like I'm trying to remember like the first time I went to Murph, it's like I think I had, by that time I had gotten a Prusa by that time. So
okay. Yeah, it's one of those, once you go Prusa, you don't really go back, do you?
So, well, I went forward, and so it's like because it's like I had very specific needs once I got into the 3D printing on fabric, such that I went with deltas, because of geometry considerations more than anything else. So
is that just because the end effector can move really quickly, or what was the reasoning for going into deltas?
Because the bed itself does not move. So I can lay a piece of fabric much larger than the bed size, and I don't have to worry about it catching on anything.
Right.
And then also because the CME CNC Artemis uses the bed leveling by tapping the bed with the nozzle, I don't have an extra thing hanging down at the level of the nozzle to catch on the tape or whatever I would be printing with. So it's like most of this time, like when I'm printing, bring up one of my crazy examples.
These examples are insane. Like dragon scales that fully flex. I looked at it and say, that is a tough print to do on its own without the fabric. Is that all done via the Delta?
That's all done via the Delta.
No kidding, man. That is.
And yeah, nuts. No supports, and you can see the crazy overhangs that I'm dealing with on the stuff.
Wow.
So and this is no infill. That's why it makes a nice sound.
Yeah, for clothing, that added sound effect only makes it better, right? Yeah. When we look at something that has to look pretty, yeah, it may not have to have the sound to it, but when it's going to have motion, and motion is really, really important, then having that either no infill or light infill, so it's got that noise to it, is
this is
so
PLA awesome. And this is PET G, so you can tell.
Denser.
I can tell the type of filament by sound because because of how I'm printing.
And I don't know if this is in the public episode yet. There's one final episode in the Sanjay series, but he works me through determining material by chewing it, by biting it. And based on its rebound, its stickiness, its stringiness, that's how if you don't know what's on the spool, you can determine it that way. But yeah, that was I'm like, that is a really interesting way to do it, but it makes sense. Printing it and listening for it, now that's cool. That's really cool.
He was also super helpful when I met him and showed him like what I was doing with the 3D printing.
Oh yeah.
Because he was talking about how printing with the wider what is that called? When you print wider than the nozzle is.
Oh yeah, slightly larger. It's not extrusion multiplier, extrusion width.
Yeah, extrusion width.
Yeah.
Will create extra back pressure on it, and that helps basically make the filament ooze through.
Force it in, yeah.
So he was super helpful in trying to determine better ways to get the whole thing. So the whole idea, and this is, I think it's easier to show on this one. As you can see, this is all nice and shiny and stuff on the back. That's because that is the first layer. So I'm printing like the first 2 to 3 layers down on the bed.
Okay.
Then I take the fabric and just use blue tape and tape down all around the entire surface of it.
So you're moving the print head away so you can work.
Yep.
You are then laying it on, you're taping it down. Are you doing any stretch to it?
I will, it all depends on the fabric. So I'll just, it's like a little bit of stretch, just to give it, there are some that I have done where I've done basically 4D print, where I've utilized very stretchy materials and then designed it in such a way that when it retracts up, then it creates a 3-dimensional shape.
Oh, so the prints would kind of stack, right?
Well, basically you print like a curved line or something like that. And then when it dry, and then when you pull it off the bed, because the print is shorter, it shrinks, it'll do that curve and it'll buckle up. And you're designing the buckling based on how you did that, but all the tension forces from the fabric itself.
So if you were doing something where you needed to print something for a bust, you'd be able to actually match the curvature potentially of the human form, and be able to get something that is incredibly form-fitting and potentially supportive, which is quite interesting. Because my experience with 3D printing fabric has always been with SLS, which is basically cheating, because there's no support material needed. You can build chainmail pieces, and Anouk Weipracht, and I'm probably butchering that last name, but if you know 3D printing clothing, Anouk is likely up there with people that you know. And I met her and got to talk to her for a little bit back in 2016, before this channel existed, before I even had a big business or bigger business in the industry, and talking to her about the challenges that she went through to get clothing that works, that is supportive, that doesn't require anything other than the prints themselves, was astounding. Right. And now she's kind of known to be one of the more vogue designers for 3D printing fashion. Love to get her on, but boy.
It's funny because it's like, there's like this group of like, 10, 15, that are doing the 3D printing on fabric, and they all have their different styles with it, which is really cool.
She just joined a BattleBots team.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, don't know why, but I'll watch it.
Yeah. Both of us were in a really cool show at Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. We are back live again, so like we're going instantly live. My power died. I've never lost power during a live stream, but you know what? It's bound to happen. And I laugh because, the one thing in my house that isn't on a battery backup? It's my router.
Nice.
So all the printers are still printing. Nothing in here died. The lights in my office turned off, but my studio lights are on, battery backup. Everything is on battery backup, but my damn router and modem. So I apologize for those that, and I don't know what this is going to do to the audio only stream, but oh well. Yeah. I lost power. It just blipped, and I'm like, son of a bitch. It's never happened before, but you know what? Screw it. We're doing it live, right?
Exactly.
All right. I don't know where the stream died on, so we're gonna have to kind of take back from there. But we were talking about dealing with how to get those layers squished appropriately, where you were printing a few layers, putting the fabric in. That's like the last thing that I remember before my lights went out and I'm freaking out trying to figure out why everything's dead.
So one of the things that I was so this is another one that I did. So this is like a blue lame fabric. As you can see my head behind it. Even though it may look very opaque, here you can see that it actually is transparent, and that ability to actually see through it is one of the ways I determine if it's a good fabric to print on. So there's three main criteria for printing. One is basically it needs to be porous. So you need to actually have some type of holes through it, either a mesh or, like an organza or something that can see through it. And that's one of the criteria. The other criteria is how stretchy it is.
Mm-hmm.
So the more stretchy it is, the more difficult it is. Not impossible. All these things are basically, you add a +5 difficulty on each one of these.
So so transparent makes it more difficult?
No, if it's opaque.
It's okay.
Like if you're trying to print on, denim, so.
I'm assuming stretchy materials are more complicated too, right?
Stretchy are more complicated, and then the thickness is more complicated. So if it's thicker, then it's harder to get through. So, and then you have different things as far as like, different materials. But I printed on so many different materials, and I printed with very different, all these, filaments between, ABS, PETG, PLA, flexible filaments, and they all work as far as that's concerned.
Okay.
So like the big thing is, and I printed on, everything from like my little monoprice to, super giant printers like that, are like big crazy gantry things that, are like, what was it, like 2 foot by 4 foot or whatever.
That's a big boy.
Yeah, there's a company locally here that makes these like crazy large printers. Make it, and
okay.
Use the deltas. My friend got a bunch of at Maker at Murph. He had bought like a Tico from somebody at Murph and got that working, and it was like a fake Kickstarter.
That garbage ass Delta printer, the Tico.
Yeah, we printed on fabric on that. So you could pretty much.
Well, it's good for something, I guess. Jeez, yeah. Those printers are terrible.
Yeah. So the big thing is, if you can do a color filament change, with your printer, you should be able to print on fabric with it.
No kidding.
It's the same principle as you need to be able to pause it, retract the head up enough that you can get the fabric underneath. This is why the Delta works really good, is I set my pause height like 200 millimeters up. So it gets the head right out of the way for me. And then I can put the fabric down, and then I continue printing.
I'm going to catch hell from some people in the industry, but seems like a Voron might be kind of the right printer for what you're thinking of, because the 2.4, because the bed is flat and everything can go up.
Exactly. Yeah, I really like the construction of that, because that's because of the fact that it doesn't move the bed,
Are there any concerns with like speed? Because of course Vorons have the speedboat race where they try to get benches as quick as possible. Do you have to print on fabric slow? I assume like that interface layer where you're pushing the material into the fabric might have to be slow, but after that you can probably crank it to the 11s, right?
Yeah, and there's this weird extra thing. So it's like this one here.
Yeah.
Say this like tip one here starts to have a problem.
Okay.
Like it loses adherence. The fact that it's now attached to the fabric, I've had one still successfully print, even though they detached from the bed, because they didn't detach from the fabric,
right.
so they didn't offset from their initial position. So they didn't fall over the bed because they were locked into place because of the fabric. So you can do some weird cheating that way.
That is really, really interesting, because I've known that there's got to be that interface material, but I've always thought, all right, anything that stretches is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Would you
So,
ever want to print TPU onto fabric, or is that just kind of a waste of time?
no, I printed, this is OBC flexible filament.
Okay.
Okay, where we go? There we go. So this is nice flexible filament. Flexible actually works really well, except for the stringing.
Yeah, I mean, oh, and I was gonna say, oh, but you just take a torch to that.
Yeah,
You can't do that in fabric, can you?
you can't unless
it's like right in line, or you use
if you print on carbon fiber, you can take a torch to it.
Oh, don't show that I can print on carbon fiber to the better 3/4, Grant. Don't do it. Don't do it. All of a sudden, she's gonna steal your printers, and she's gonna turn them into fabric printing machines.
So yeah. So this is like, so my original thing, what I was trying to do with all the 3D printing on fabric was, how far can I take it with no sewing and no glue? You know, take the two things that you would use for fashion out of the equation and see if you can still make fashion.
I know lots about glue. I know very little about sewing, and anytime I try to fix, like, when a belt loop rips off or something like that, Amber is like, no, stop it. Let me do it. You're going to make it worse. I'm like, yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. See, now I can say, no, but hun, I can 3D print on it. But that's honestly probably more work than a stitch, but that might be a fun video.
So
wait a minute, those are stacked.
Is that enough of an extreme overhang for you?
No. What? How?
No support.
How?
Because the bottoms look like garbage, and let's see if I can get that right. There we go. So the bottoms will look like garbage, but I don't care. And as you can see, I have like this extra little bit of geometry there.
Yeah.
And I'm utilizing the fact that they're going to probably tip, but the fabric is going to hold them in place.
Okay, so you're building some sort of like a brace involved in that, right?
No, there's no brace. There's no brace, but there is, like, if I show this on the back side, there is like a little piece that goes down, that little rib.
Got it. Like a little buttress to kind of keep it in place. That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
It's so like how the Flexi Slug works, where it has that buttress to make sure that it doesn't come apart during printing.
Yeah. So that way you can, print these extreme overhangs on that, and this comes off the printer like this.
But like, who looks at the bottom of a piece of fabric anyways? That's gonna be weird. Like, let me look underneath your clothing so I can see if the overhang is bad. No, back off.
Yeah. So like, these ones, the overhang works out really good.
Okay.
And as you can see, I don't have any issues with that, to the point that I can print that really big because I can like add rings to it. Because again, that whole printing without. So I can supersize it.
Holy crap. That's huge.
Yeah. So I'm basically putting them together with rings.
Right. I've seen that. You've shown that off before, where you're using chainmail rings, right?
Yeah. So, and because of the geometry, you can see how nice that that
Yeah.
overhang.
What's the average overhang on that? I mean, theoretically, it should at some point need some support, no?
Well, yeah, again, I'm trying to remember the science one that they had where you try to make a bridge and you can actually go like twice the size of the like whatever, say you're using dominoes and you're like stacking them up and you're offsetting them.
Okay.
Like you can go twice as far if you basically exponentially, like if you make that curve. So you just keep on actually curving the stacking block. And this is how they used to make like bridges and stuff like that. Because if you like keep on stacking them in such a way, you can have this like crazy overhang, but it's still self-supporting. So the thing is, you just keep on, you can do a crazy overhang, but you just have to gradually offset.
Yeah, you have to gradually get there. Thom Llama is saying if you use a short path direct drive hot end like a Omnia drop or Hermera and tune the retraction, you can get near zero stringing with TPU. But I know the delta is going to be Bowden, right? To keep the effector down.
There is like some crazy ones. There's like two other ones, deltas that I know of. Like there's the one that uses the weird spring drive thing where it's a curved drive like you use for like the dental tools, and
Okay.
it has a
I've
curve
seen those, yeah.
And then the other one is they have the direct drive, but it's like hanging on springs above the Bowden, above the
with like a really short
thing.
We've got some people saying that could you tilt the printer to deal with the overhangs? I don't know if you could, but Bill Todd is saying that it seems like a really interesting application for a belt printer, where if you wanted to print on, well, a belt printer is basically printing on fabric when you really boil it down, but you
again, everybody keeps on saying about the belt printers and everything like that. Okay, so let me try to explain why this is a problem as far as the belt printer is concerned. Okay, these layers need to go on first, then the fabric, then the top layers.
And because belt is at 45 degrees, it's not going to do that.
Now, if you stack two belts together, like one chain, one right after another, so you print out the bottom, then you keep on the same belt. This would be the other thing, is you'd have to do on the same belt.
Right.
Then interject the fabric in the middle and then print on it. Then yes, you could. The problem with all of this whole 3D printing is, okay, I don't know, how many do you think there are there? You know, a couple hundred?
Yeah.
So how many times have you printed, you know, a couple hundred like chess pieces and all of them turned out just fine?
Not often, and that's why our buddy Paul is awesome for his cancel objects add-on for Octoprint, because if I'm doing stuff like that, like what you're doing, and I guess if one fails, you're kind of screwed.
Because then the pattern is all screwed up.
Yeah, yeah. Damn it.
Yeah, so you again, you have like you got plus 15 difficulty all automatically there, you know. Because you have like multiple little tiny objects and none of them can fail and you can't cancel them. So, and the pause between the two, and you got to make sure that the hot end does not like grab the piece of fabric or grab the tape that you taped everything down, or none of the tape lifts or anything like that, and start some grinding against the fan or whatever.
That's so much no.
Well, you showed the failed print where it grabbed it and went yank.
Yep. Yeah, because the difference for like a regular printer, when you have something where it comes delaminated and the printer grabs it, it's gonna likely knock over a few things. But for yours, it can rip the fabric off the bed. Yeah, you're right. It really is a modifier that is an exponential increaser in difficulty.
Yeah.
What is your most favorite fabric related 3D print that you've done? Is it the piece behind you?
It's another one that's based on, well, it's actually more of a chainmail one. It's
Okay.
based on ones where I'm setting the stuff in after the fact. So, as you can see here,
How?
this one is not printed as fabric. This one, I am basically making insets that snap into the rings and then setting the rings in by hand. So this is basically my ability to like be more precise for chainmail.
My mind's
And
a little blown right now because is that all fully printed?
no,
No.
all the silver chains are metal chain links that I'm putting in by hand.
Jeez.
And then I'm also putting in like those rhinestones in there.
Okay. And are you printing all the settings, or are the stones just glued in or something?
Like all of those are just press fit into it.
Wow.
So it's just like press in it. So that this one I can just print a bunch of little pieces, little hexagons that snap in. And the hexagons are actually two pieces. There's a top piece and a bottom piece that sandwich together. As opposed to this chain thing.
Whoa.
Which had to be printed in place on the bed and uses rings which are set in at a certain point and paused in. So I paused and
you're pausing, you're inserting it, and then it's captivating, making it
but
captive,
as you can
right?
see, this is an extra level of difficulty. And then I paused it 2 more times for color.
I mean, you gotta have the cool colors, right?
Yeah. So,
dude, you are a masochist in the 3D printing world, that's for sure. So your favorite or most used printer is going to be the Delta then?
Yeah, the Delta it's like if I could get say a Voron or whatever,
right?
I'd probably look into that because of the geometry specs of it and the fact that it's a square bed, because also the round bed is a little bit
it limits you a fair bit.
Yeah. So you have a little bit of limitation on that, whereas like something that has a big bed that is square is going to be a little bit more helpful, that as long as it doesn't move. Like I've looked into router based 3D printers as well, ones that are
right, where you could take like a pen plotter, like a 500 by 500 pen plotter, because
I don't need the Z. That's the thing, is I don't need the Z.
Right. Yeah. You need a little bit of Z, but you don't need a ton.
Yeah.
Maybe what, 5-6 millimeters for most of the stuff.
Yeah, because a lot of it is like this height, so
right,
and like especially if it's like it can move in such a way that I can get it really out of the way for taping down. That would be the other thing.
Oh man. Yeah, because so are you getting a Prusa XL? Because that bed moves, but it's only up and down.
Yeah, but see that, and that's the thing, is still that moving up and down becomes a little bit of an issue as far as taping it down. Not as bad, but the other thing that I also watch out for with more with bed slingers than anything else is when I'm pausing it, I want to make sure that I don't accidentally move the bed when I'm taping down things or whatever.
Yeah, there's just the likelihood of that happening is slim to none. So, kind of effectively, if you're pausing a bed slinger to put the fabric on there, it's gonna be shifted, unless your pause could also force the motors to
Yeah.
stay on. Some
Yeah.
do, some don't.
Yeah, so it's like I've done a ton of ones with, like Prusa's and stuff like that, and you can get it to do. Like my big thing with the Prusa ones is the fact that they have a very tight a clearance on the left and the right with basically the gantry that holds it up. So when the back moving back and forth, I can't have the fabric go over the bed on the left and the right side.
Right. Yeah, that's a problem. You can with a Prusa Mini, but only on, if you're looking at the printer, only on the left side of the printer.
Yeah. That's where like that little mini one that I had was actually better.
Yeah, because it's got an open gantry on one side.
Yeah.
But I can imagine the chances of that fabric getting caught and kind of ripping itself because it got caught would be an issue.
So there's tons of stuff that, it's like, and there's a lot of people that use like Core XY machines and stuff like that for this. And that's where
we've got a big Core XY machine. It's 400 by 400 by 800.
Yeah.
But that 800 is like completely useless.
Yeah. It's good to get the head out of the way. Like when you want to actually get.
Yeah. There are some other challenges with a printer that big and moving something that far, but that's a video for probably 6 to 8 months away when I can lift the new Z-axis for that printer.
And it's like if you want some like, you like these spikes here, but you want to have like really crazy ones, then you can do the 800, and just have like.
Really, I just want to print a big spike mohawk.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And I want it to flex around my dumb head. That would just be hilarious.
Yeah.
God, doing a mohawk now would be hilarious because my hair was so long, but oh man. So and that's an ornament of some sort?
Oh, these are lights that I made.
It's a lantern.
Yeah, so this basically is one of those LED lights that just you click on and click on.
Okay.
And the whole idea is this here was.
Is that just like wooden dowels?
Yep, these are just wooden dowels from like dollar store.
Okay.
Yeah. And so basically I can just reconfigure these and snap these apart, where it's like, I just take that and just slide them apart. There we go. And as you can see, I just have the pieces. Now, as you can see, I have like a little different color.
Yeah.
That's because I'm printing on the fabric once, then I'm cutting it out. And then I made a cavity for a second one, about the whole like 3D printing masochist. These actually 4 parts. So there's the printing on fabric, which is 2 different prints.
Jeez.
And then the printing the frame, which is another 2 prints. So the way that I actually do this is I use Simplify because I can set up factory files that are not associated with the print itself,
right?
But associated with the file. So I can make these complicated printing structures where this one pauses at, 0.5 millimeters high, and this one pauses at, but it's not actually pausing. It's actually a separate G-code file. So I make a G-code A and a G-code B, and then I reprint it. And because the delta doesn't bed level each time, I can just reprint it. I can just set up the print again and go again. So it was easier for me to set up multiple G codes rather than to try to figure out a pause routine that may or may not work.
That's astounding. It's like, that is one of the few reasons that I can recommend Simplify 3D to people, because otherwise, have you played with the new Prusa Slicer 2.4?
I haven't played with the new one. So
that one's really only good if you're, you know, that one is really, it's like night and day for support material. And a couple of other things, like I'm still on beta 1, they're on RC2. We're gonna be doing a video on that. So if you all are watching, make sure you get subscribed to the YouTube channel and leave a like while you're at it. It helps us grow. And don't forget, if you want to support the channel directly, you can do so at patreon.com/3dmusketeers. But yeah, that new Prusa slicer might give you what you need. I don't know, because it would effectively be you can do it as a color change or give it an M600 pause command. But I do think that, like, for what you're doing, Simplify 3D is probably still the easiest. Yeah, I think it is still the easiest.
And those same triangles that I did, I can make this because it's all made, it's the same geometry.
Right.
So the ones that I made for that, I made for this.
I'm being told that Idea Maker can do all the things Simplify 3D can. I don't know about that, but I'm being told by Thom Llama in the comments that is a thing. Have you worked with Idea Maker at all, or no?
I played with Idea Maker, and that's the thing is, like, you know, I've talked to the other slicer manufacturers and stuff like that, especially at the at like Murph and Nerf, and it's like, please make something. These are the constraints that I need, which are very, very different than everybody else's. Because also setting up separate G codes, I'm able to do that layer right after the fabric with no fan, with a printer, with a change in printer width, and slower, and all these other things. So that's why it was easier to do it as, instead of a pause. You can totally do it with a pause, but depending on how difficult your fabric is, you may want to print it slower on that layer. You may want to print it without a fan. You may want to print it hotter. All these things is much easier to put into as a separate G code after, and just have an A and a B. And also, people ask, I do not add spacing for the fabric. I print as if the fabric does not exist because I want it to ooze through. I want it to slam through the fabric.
But then your fabric must be thinner than your layer height, correct?
Well, it'll push down on it. It all depends on, like, if you have everything put down together, you know, it's like, it's probably going to be thinner than my layer height.
Okay.
But the thing that you want to do is just, you want to push the, you know, it's like taking a hot glue gun to fabric, and you want to press it on there and have it ooze through.
Right. I tried doing that the other day, and I ended up breaking the thing I was doing, but that's also why Amazon exists, and I was able to order the part. I was trying to clean a vent fan grate, and I was trying to get the cleaner through it. And so I got it up close, and I pushed it, and it just blew the entire grate out. I'm like, well, guess that's a $15 mistake. I mean, that's a cheap mistake at the end of the day. But I guess I've never considered that the nozzle would push it down. It might be better if it is a little thicker then, right?
So yeah, so it's like, well, like I have one of those. I haven't tried it yet, but it's like, I think I'm the only one that, you know, could use a ruby nozzle to print PLA because of the hardness of the nozzle on the outside.
Okay.
Because, like, I can actually, the printer really doesn't like it. It does a very good job, but the printer will tell you that it really doesn't like it, but you can print on aluminum screen door mesh.
It doesn't like it because of the metals, or?
Oh, it's just like, you know, it's like, you're basically, you're grinding the nozzle onto a metal mesh.
You were talking about denim earlier, and I'm just thinking of, like, all the interesting fashion things that you can do by printing on denim, but you can't print through denim. So would your, or can you? I figure denim is too dense and you can't get plastic through it to bond to the layers under it.
Yes and no.
And he's got a piece of denim handy. I mean, geez.
So what happened, you can't get through this.
Uh-huh.
But because it is so fuzzy essentially. It's so rough,
Sticks
it
right
will
to it.
it'll stick enough to it.
Okay. So in that particular case, you don't give a damn about bed adhesion because you're not getting any anyways. You
Yeah.
really have to make sure that fabric is locked down, though.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Oh, it's so interesting.
This is effectively my bed is the fabric.
So can we switch a little bit to the resin? We got a question from Carlos asking, can you print with a resin printer by adhering the fabric to the base plate? I believe that is how you do it, right?
Yes. What you're doing is, I've had friends who have resin printers. I personally don't actually have a resin printer yet. I ordered that the Frozen Mini 8K.
Oh, okay. Yeah. High resolution for sure.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be trying that out. But the friends of mine that have done it, what they do is they'll print a couple of layers,
Right.
pause print, and then zip tie the fabric up at the top of it, around that top, or use a rubber band or something like that,
right,
around the bed, and then keep on dipping it down, and then throw the whole thing into the wash.
Before we go any further, I would be remiss, and I think I might be fired from the owner of the company if I didn't say that resin is toxic. I don't have the fancy thing that happens in the videos, but resin is toxic. And for the love of God, don't stick your hands in raw resin. Don't do it. And even further, right, that fabric is going to be soaked in resin.
Yeah.
So understand, you're going to lose a lot of resin. Now, you could let it drip, but capillary action is probably not going to let a lot of it do it.
Well, the people that I've seen do it, they use like tulle. So it's a very so it's essentially like a plastic mesh, and it doesn't really soak the way that other fabrics do. So a lot of it is like a mesh fabric that people have been printing on. I haven't seen it on, say, like, a thicker fabric like this or something like that, so, but, that has the added benefit of, like, you can print like these little tiny detailed scales and stuff like that.
Right.
So
I mean,
like,
you're in contact with Aura, right?
with who?
Synthetic ephemera, Aura.
Yeah.
She would be the one to really talk to about that, because that's.
Yeah, she had done the regular printing on, I think she had maybe done some resin on fabric printing before. I know that she's done the fabric ones because I met her at Maker Fair Bay Area when I was first there. She came up and she was showing how she had watched my channel, watched my like Instagram or whatever, and had done some little tiny fashions for her dolls that she had made. So she printed on fabric with an FDM printer for that.
Huh. Yeah, I will probably never try resin printing on fabric, because I simply don't want to deal with the mess. But like the mesh screen that you're talking about, like that, like a thin nylon mesh, would probably be okay, because you're right, it's not gonna hold a ton.
The other one that is probably the easiest and the cheapest to print on, I wish I had an example right here, but is to print on fiberglass screen door mesh, like the black screen door mesh.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that, because that stuff is dirt cheap, comes on big freaking rolls,
doesn't stretch, and has big holes.
And you can get it in whatever color you want too, generally.
I don't know of other color ones.
Black, you can get it in black and white, and I've seen them get made in bespoke colors too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I haven't seen the bespoke. If you find links, send them to me. But okay. But yeah, so it's like I've done it on those screen door, and I've done it on like the the aluminum screen door mesh, and both will work.
So like on an FDM printer, your only risk is you're losing time, right? The chances of you hurting a nozzle or the motion system on the printer is pretty low. But on a resin printer, the chances of cracking your screen, which like, you know, we've got a Photon Mono X, we got a few Marses, or a few Saturns. Those are like $130 screens, and even the screens for the OG Marses that are LCD based, those are like $30, and apparently I could just replace them with mono, which is kind of cool. But you know, those kind of mistakes can cost much more in resin. So anyone that does want to do that, I would hedge you to just be careful. And if you do have a, you know, let's say if it's an LCD, you start having dead pixels. Now is the time to start learning, because the screen's dead anyways. You're not going to make it worse.
So, so there is a very practical version of printing on with resin with this. So it's like my friends, they printed some little dragon scales like these on the resin printer.
Right.
And they were so cute, and they had a really cool feel because they were little tiny ones.
Right.
And it was like, this feels familiar, but I can't remember where. And it took me like, you know, like a month or whatever. It's like, oh, I know what it is. I went on, did a tour of JPL when they still had the tour JPL like one weekend a year. So went to the tour, and they had these robots that would crawl on the rocks, and they had these things that had little, basically almost like little pads like you have on like a gecko or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Almost like 100 little fish hooks like in the pad. So it would grab onto the rock, and somebody had to make all this stuff.
Yeah.
Where you could basically print these little claw pads for your robot with and then it would flex around like a rocky surface or whatever.
Okay, that would be cool. That's got to be. I mean, that's a future video, but that's a future video in a little bit. Like, you know, when we're like full-time content creators, and I can dedicate a month to making a video like that work, because boy howdy, that is really. So they're using just like little micro hooks to grab onto anything, right?
Yeah. So there's like little, basically like, you know, like little pads, like finger pads, or like pads that you have on like a cat, you know. But the pads have like these little hooky things, the little metal hooks on them. And the hooks are so that like this robot can hang upside down on this rock because it's just grabbing onto it.
Right. And it's got so much ability to grab onto anything that even like somewhat of a smooth surface is still going to have some pitting and stuff.
Yeah. So as a cheap way of manufacturing those, you know, do them on whatever that tough resin that like
Tenacious. No, Tenacious is the that's the flexible. Literally blue. I think it's blue. Yeah, blue's the tough. Blue's the tough from Soraya.
What is the was it Ivan, the guy who does like the 3D robot stuff, all in like the red 3D prints, and he's doing a music one now?
Not aware.
There's a couple of people that are doing different things with different tougher resins and stuff like that. So it's like I'm trying to find out like, okay, what would be the best for this, you know, as far as that's concerned. You know, you may want a little bit of flexibility or whatever, you know, just because you're printing so fine or whatever, you know.
Now, is it possible to combine like a foam and 3D prints? Or no? So Carlos is asking, he said, combining foam and 3D prints, how are you doing that? Don't know if this was answered before. Oh, and apparently the person's name is Ivan Miranda.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard of the channel, but I'll add it to my list of channels I have to watch. I'll
Yeah.
have to go watch
Super
all the stuff now.
spacers.
Huh?
Spacers. You'll get it when you watch the thing. So, so, but yeah. So, he was doing some other ones. Oh, this was one of the other ones I did. So.
Oh, I know this channel. Okay, I know this channel. I didn't recognize the name. I know the guy. I didn't recognize the name. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So he had one where he was printing these pieces for like his version of that Marble X music machine.
Yeah.
And he like was hitting one of his, I thought they were machined plastic parts or something like that he made, but they're all resin, and they're like a smoky like a frosted white resin that he's using. And he's like, he has one and he's like hitting it with a hammer and it's just like bouncing, you know.
Resin can be very, very, very tough, especially like when you start mixing in a flexible resin into a tough resin. I mean, you're getting to a point where your tensile strength is high, but so is your impact resistance, and those two things don't normally go together.
Yeah. So it's like things like that for both fashion and the mechanical properties is what I'm looking at. So one of the other ones that I did was this handbag.
I saw that and I kind of love it.
So this is based on the Star Hopper.
Yep.
But this is the Star Shopper.
Oh, I love it. I love the name. It's so bad, but I love the name. Is that all fully 3D printed?
So this
I want to talk about how that was made real quick.
Yeah. So this is basically the things, actually what you're seeing is all 3D printed except for the rivets that are holding it together in the fabric.
No kidding.
So I'm printing basically like a shell out there, and
right.
then I'm riveting using the pop rivets.
Yeah.
I found out you make holes and then you can just pop rivet everything together.
Pop rivets are great.
No sewing and no glue. Again. So you got to figure out like different faceting methods. And then, so it's like, I wanted to do, you know, the little tanks on the top, right?
Right.
And the cord. So I just 3D printed on fabric those things. I didn't glue them on afterwards.
So you printed the hexagons, and then you printed the lines on top of it.
So the hexagons, these things, that's the fabric. It's a mylar fabric.
Oh, I'm like, this guy's all that is like a silk filament. Okay, I got it. I got it now.
So that's like a mylar on the fabric, but it's in such a way I can print through that.
Cool.
So,
oh, that's so cool.
And then I just printed these things on top, and you can kind of see in there. So
good thing. I think Amber's traveling right now. I think she's on her way back to the shop. So she's probably not watching this, which is good.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to have a whole list of things that she wants now.
Well, yeah,
she sees
this one, I don't know if you can quite see what I meant, what I actually printed there, but
Lego, 2x2 Lego.
So if you want an ocean for your ship that you made in Lego,
yeah,
you just print this and then you can stick it onto the fabric and have a nice flowy ground.
Okay, I need a lab coat with Lego on it. Or I need clothing with Lego on it, so I can just like put a Lego brick on my keys, my keys on there, and oh, what a cool, like, for kids where they could literally like, build on their own clothing. That would be so freaking cool.
Yeah, Amy Dede had done a bunch of stuff with this as well.
Dude. Oh man, my mind's kind of blown here for a little bit. I'm like, wait a minute, I can put Lego in my clothes. A working apron. Dude, okay, Carlos, that's the idea. The idea is the apron. It's the apron. Oh no, Amber's listening. I just got a text she's listening. Ah, crap. Damn it, Shorey! Lego robotics aprons with tools on the sleeves. Oh my gosh. This needs... I need to see this. This needs to be a reality. This... Oh, that'd be so cool.
So,
If you built cosplay that clipped on with Lego, you could have a shirt, and then you can clip all your cosplay. Oh, dude, so many possibilities.
but the thing is, Lego, getting the accuracy on your print is difficult. So one of the things that I've done here to make it a little bit easier
Okay.
is I printed it like a screw with a line in there. So it's a little oversized. So when you put the Lego on it, it squishes that together to hold, rather than printing a regular round stud.
Right. That
Lego.
makes sense. Yeah, having that little line makes sense.
Yeah. So
Now, printing is kind of heavy, right? When we look at the density of PLA and PETG, they're around 1.25 grams per cubic centimeter. What is, like, the heaviest thing that you've printed for clothing? Is it the piece behind you, or?
no, this one's super light. The one that I did the chain,
Oh, with the big gold dragon scale thing?
this stuff is like super heavy because it has all the chain in it.
Oh, because of course there's more metal than there is plastic. Right,
Yeah.
right.
Well, plastic, because it's thin, like this is actually super big, but it's actually very light because these are hollow.
Ah, yeah, that okay. So it's actually it's not the plastic, it's all the metal components involved in it that add up to the weight.
Yeah, so it's like, so the plastic on like this and stuff like that is, just, trim, it's no different than like adding a zipper.
Right. Damn it. I'm gonna have to do something some sort of 3D printed clothing for the channel and wear it as a set piece.
Yeah.
That'd be so cool. So you haven't been doing this all that long then, in terms of getting involved in the fabric, but it seems as though you're really making headway on more of the esoteric styling,
Yeah.
because like the skill is kind of there, but you're pushing the boundaries of what's possible to see where are my limitations, right? I mean, that's kind of what you're going for, is find those limitations.
With everything was, once I got into it, was I wanted to play with the constraints of how far can I take this with no sewing and no glue, showing that it's like you can design your own fashion, but you can actually take out the thing that you think you need most, which is sewing to do fashion, and take that out and still create functional final pieces.
I love the idea, because like we used to look at this and say, all right, I know you have to use a mesh, and we always struggled because all we ever had were bed slingers until we built the big D-bot. And I'm like, I am not going to attach fabric to this. It is going to cause me problems. And I'm glad that I didn't, because it probably would have, because I'm definitely not going to take the time and care that you do, right? Because this is like, if you guys don't know, and it's shoreydesigns.com, I believe. And I'll put it in the chat here. But go check out Dave's website, because it's kind of ridiculous. Like, the stuff that you've done is absolutely crazy. What is the piece you're most proud of? Because there's probably a story behind that.
The piece that I'm actually most proud of is the fact that I was able to make a bunch of pieces for the Museum of Science and Industry.
Chicago?
Yeah, the Chicago Museum of Science and Industry is a museum that I went to as a kid, and they contacted me for the wired to wear thing. So Anouk was there. She had her dress. the guy who had the jetpack, um, that had like the arm jets and then the back jet,
Yeah.
and one of his suits was there. So it was like big thing, and it was there for 18 months.
So you got to exhibit 3D
Yeah.
printing fabric next to a Nook and a guy that made a jetpack.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? That's a check on the bucket list right there for sure.
Yeah.
So what was sent there? Is it still there?
It's not, as far as I know, that it's not up anymore.
Okay.
But I have it on my I have that on my Instagram. And I think there is there's some pieces as well on my website as well. So but I printed out these big fabric areas.
Okay.
So I did a number of different ones. I think I did a version of this one. And I did some other claws, and I think I printed something like, I'm trying to remember how many, I think it was like 16 or 18 pieces, but it was like, I had to print 3 of each one because they didn't know how they were going to use it. So at the end, they actually just had a smaller display that they used for it, just like 3 different pieces. But the fact that I was actually into the show and I was able to like, go there and show my, and
that's so cool, dude.
Go there with my family. And we did this, like, they opened up like a week before Murph.
Okay.
Like, I went to Murph, and then, but a couple days before, we went to the museum to go see all of this.
Oh, what a cool couple of days for you then. Jeez.
So it was super cool to be coming off of that and just go to Murph and hang out and everything like that. So that was my big one. Was that the other one for me that was huge was SIGGRAPH. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No.
SIGGRAPH is a for the visual effects, it is like the convention for this.
Okay.
And it's like computer graphics convention. So like the 3D printing where you do the 4D stuff and it shapes into a different thing, like there's a paper on that where they take a 3D mesh and then figure out mathematically exactly how to do the spacing of things so that it creates the proper shape and all that crazy stuff. There was an amazing printer by the MIT Media Lab, which I want, which prints in like a gelatin, like a clear gelatin surface. So it's basically a 2-foot cube volume, and it has a long nozzle in there, and it prints I can't remember if it's silicone or latex, and it will print it from the bottom up, but you can actually make like these rubbery structures that, because it's a gelatin that it's printing in,
right,
that it's the same buoyancy as the material they're printing, it needs no support. So they can print bladders and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Dude.
Inflate it like 800% what it was original shape without it. So they can make like all these kind of like weird complex structures and stuff like that. So, it's like if you need say a interface layer between like a prosthetic or something like that, you could 3D print this in this thing, and then it would just be the right shape.
That's the freaking ticket right there, especially when we look at prosthetics. Anyone that needs a prosthetic understands that, guess what? Bodies aren't a constant size. Our bodies change sizes based on things like, sodium levels, how much pressure it's had throughout the day, and that can make some prosthetics incredibly uncomfortable. And having that gel layer is really about the only protection that some people have. And so being able to 3D print that where it's set perfectly for the person and we understand how their body is going to expand and contract. Dude, that's like next friggin' level.
And it looked like a machined part because the layer lines, because of the surface tension, like just like kind of melted together.
Right. Well, and that's kind of the deal with most resin printing, right? Where well, one, the layers are thin, but because it's a liquid, generally the layers kind of just blend together quite well.
Yeah, and the thing is they just printed it and then just let it cure in that gel and then just pulled it out.
I want one. I want like 3. I don't know what the hell I would do with it, but I want some. That'd be so damn cool. It is certainly one of those things where I don't know much about it, but I want to learn more. I'd love to get connected with the people that do that so we can either have them on the show or, you know, do a video about it because, you know, as I've kind of like, I have a bad back. You know this, some of the people may not know, and I walk with a cane. And I've made small little changes to things, like I have a custom lumbar support on my chair. I've got custom things on the feet, the wheels of my chair to keep me from running over my own feet because sometimes I can't feel my feet. Things like that where I've utilized 3D printing to adapt the challenges of the disability. And I think that a lot of people can benefit from something like that. And I'd love to kind of talk about it more. That'd be a really, really cool thing to talk about.
Yeah, so, you know, it's like they were, you know, so SIGGRAPH was showing off, like, they'll have like the high-end stuff with the graphics and the graphics cards and the video games, but then they'll also have that. So there was like that one. There was another one where they were using, I think it was like not a laser, but a heat gun, like a like one like that you use like for focusing for like desoldering stuff on a robot arm, and then they had a fabric that if you like put heat on it, it would shrink up. So they had a temperature in such a way that the fabric would shrink up. So remember how we were talking about the 4D prints, right?
Yeah. That kind of follows in that same footstep.
So the other way to do this is you lay down a fabric that can shrink if you apply heat in certain areas, and then they go with the robot arm as ribs on it, and then when they pull it off the stretcher, then it shrinks into the right shape for the body.
Got it. God, dude. This is like the math for that is beyond my comprehension. But then we get into actually doing it, and that's a whole next friggin' level. That's
the really whole robot's running on like Grasshopper and Rhino.
Of course it is. Of course it's running in Rhino.
Like Rhino is such a weird program in that like you have like 3 main like 3 or 4 main disciplines, and they don't overlap at all.
Right.
So like you use it for architecture, you use it for weird robotic stuff, or you use it for jewelry making.
Yep. Those all check out. But yeah, it's similar to how Revit was never really designed to do 3D printing, but you can design to 3D print inside a Revit. I don't know if Rhino was ever designed with those 3 industries in mind, or if that's just the way that things ended up, right? If that's like just the industry standard that was made.
Rhino was originally as a CAD program designed to build boats.
Why is it called Rhino?
No, my guess is the weird curve structure design that you need for the horn on a Rhino. I don't know.
Maybe. What is your favorite digital tool or tool that you use most that you don't think other people use enough?
Ooh,
that's a fan question.
The one that there's a free one that is super cool called Linkage.
Okay.
And it is designed to make what is that called? 4-bar linkages.
Yeah, for like suspensions.
So it's like, but it could be anything. So it's like you need a linkage for a suspension, but you need also like originally he built it for creating a crazy complex grabber for a marble slide.
Oh yeah,
So
that would be a tough thing to grab, wouldn't it?
it needed to grab it and then pull it around and then move it up and then like slowly move it over here. But it was all on like one single rotation. But it was like I needed some of that for like my robotic arm stuff that I was playing with, where I wanted to have the control surface and the pivot point at two different spots. So if you want to have something that pushes around, but you want it to like turn at the knuckle itself, then
Right.
this could actually, you could design that up and figure out like how big the linkages need to be in order to get it so that the pivot point's in the right spot.
That's absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. I haven't gotten this far, and I feel like I'm doing myself a disservice in the industry, right? I focused a lot on the hardware and not a ton on the software side of things. And that is, it's like, I don't know what the hell I would use it for, but I think if I had it, I'd use it.
Yeah, the other one that is super cool, but it's kind of expensive now is Marvelous Designer.
What's it run?
I forget because they have a subscription model that I don't have anymore.
Oh,
because
fun.
I bought it when they didn't have the subscription, and I can still update mine until it goes to 13. So it's like but yeah, that one, I think it was like $40 or $50 a month.
Woo.
So,
Yeah, that can add up. $600 a year, basically.
So, but what it does is it's fabric CAD. So this designer, basically you design your fabric and that will figure out like how it drapes and everything like that. But it's much more so than that, because people think, oh, you can bring in this and bring in that. You can also apply an animation to, so you can bring in a runway walk and then pump that out as not as an animation, but as an Alembic file, and then bring that into Unreal Engine and then play that back in real time.
Wow. Okay. I've never heard of Marvelous Designer. I will have to take a look at it, because that, I don't know what the hell would I use it for? I have no clue. But I think, again, having access to that kind of software for like the channel, I don't think I would use it personally or in the business, but it might be cool for the channel.
So the thing is, like, say you actually want to make a stuffed Benchy. You could bring in the geometry of your Benchy, and then you can actually draw on the Benchy itself panels and then stitch them together, and you will get a flat pattern of what the Benchy is on the other side. So you can just send that to a Cricut or whatever, get that cut out, and then sew them together, and then have your...
I've actually got a use for this, because I've got a client that's doing a hard part and fabric part project.
Yeah.
Ha! Cool. I now have a valid use to buy it, and it's now a write-off. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So that one's a very fun tool as far as that's concerned, because it's like, I thought it was like, oh, you have like these models of people and you can just put it on it. It's like, no, it doesn't care. It's any geometry that you can bring into it, you can apply to this surface.
That is super cool. Super cool. And so I it's a two-part question, but it's, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self? And then where do you see yourself in 10 years?
As far as advice on that,
Yeah, what does current Shorey want to tell 20-year-old Shorey? I love that we all call you Shorey too. I don't know why we do, but I've always, every time people talk to you, they call you Shorey. I don't know if you like Dave, David, or Shorey.
I usually go by David, but every place that I've worked, even if it's like 8 people, there I'm the second David.
Ah, that's why
Like-
Shorey makes sense.
Like every place, like, you know, I went to Catholic school. I was growing up, and there was like 13 kids, and there was like 4 boys, and I wasn't the only David, and there was another David S.
Ah, every time.
Like you could get away with it.
But yeah, advice to your 20-year-old self.
I would say probably try to understand electronics earlier. And the other one that I would probably say to myself, and this is one of the things I found out about myself early, is really late, just like a couple months ago, is that I have aphantasia, which is the inability to visualize things in your head. So I don't have the ability to like, oh, make a really cool werewolf that has flames coming off of his back. You know, it's like that I can't like picture in my head. What I do is I picture systems, like I can picture like a clockwork of things, or
Okay.
like almost like a instruction manual on how to put something together.
Right.
But trying to do that. So things where that would require, say, being, say, a visual effects supervisor, where you design, where it's like you read a script and you have to like visualize what all this stuff is going to go, and then try to get somebody else's, you know, sign off on that. But like a mechanical structure of like, this is how it works.
Okay.
Work for me. So there's areas in which I can focus on, which are a better use of my time.
Makes sense. Yeah, kind of understanding where you're efficient and deficient, and
Yeah.
be able to improvise, adapt, and overcome to work with it. Yeah, that's actually really, really good advice.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah.
And then what about where do you see yourself in 10 years?
So the thing that so it's like I've done all this fabric stuff, and I've pretty much come to the conclusion that although it's very cool and looks really cool, and I love doing it, and I'll make more, as far as like scalability, it does not have, I can't do that. I can't run this at scale or make like a fashion brand out of it, because I would have to go to a different manufacturing technique, and then it loses its kind of value for it.
You would just need a shitload of 3D printers.
But again, like your failure rate is so high.
Right. What is the failure rate?
I would say it really depends on, like, if I'm trying something new, you know, it's like I may fail like 3-4 times before I get the thing right, you know?
Right. Right.
You know, so, and then it's like, I'll print out, you know, like something like this. And if I don't have the settings all like going on, I'll probably like every, you know, 5th, 6th one fail, you know?
Wow. Yeah, that is for those that might be struggling with 3D printers, it is not common to have a failure rate that high. And if you are struggling with 3D printing, highly recommend you go check out the Print Fail Friday series, where you, sir, you've been on it 2 weeks in a row. Although I don't, next week, since it is Christmas Eve, it's going to be a comedy episode. So it's literally just going to be me giving wrong advice. So like a resin print that failed, dry your filament, right? You know, that's answers like that. You know, just as a funny one for the holidays. But are you doing any custom printing for the holidays that you can show off and not ruin gifts, of course?
Actually not this year. I've been working on my other thing, which brings you to the other question of where I see myself in 20 years, which is the thing that that I'm also like dealing with is I'm interfacing with humans, when I'm doing this 3D printing on fabric.
Right.
The thing that I really realize is there's a need for is a way to do things that are physical, but remotely. So one of the things so I refer to it as remote physical work. So it's like, it's different than robotics. It's much closer to puppeteering. So the idea is I have a saw that, a little mini saw, and I have servos hooked up to it and a camera so that I can actually control the saw remotely. And the idea behind that is, say you are at a makerspace and you have all kinds of different machine tools. You want to, it's difficult to check everybody out on that.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you have that in a locked room, that the power goes off when anybody opens the door, and then you can have them operate without glass, without safety glasses, without earplugs, whatever, behind a glass panel or a screen and operate the tools and only go in there when they're putting the wood or whatever there is in and out.
That is incredibly valuable. Anyone that's ever had or seen injuries from a wood shop, specifically wood shops, things like, saw blades going through hands. And the table saw is one of the more dangerous ones, but if nothing else, it's the person that's really the most dangerous thing in that shop, right? Yeah. Long hair near a lathe, that's going to be a problem. Not paying attention to a chop saw, well, your fingers are going to get a little bit shorter. Bandsaw, that's not going to cut you. That's going to tear and be a real problem. A wood shop is like everything in here can kill you, and it will hurt the entire time you are dying. And what you're working on will solve a lot of those problems by enabling effectively remote work in a wood shop.
Yeah.
Or any shop for that matter.
Yeah. It's like you don't have to wear a mask as far as like being able to, breathe, deal with the wood particles and everything bad. So there's all kinds of benefits just on that. But it's not just the whole wood shop. The idea is to create a like a little ecosystem of things that can be attached to different devices.
Okay.
So say it's a paintbrush and you want to actually be able to use your Wacom tablet and then paint a picture in Australia when you're in LA. And then they physically have the painting when you are done. So you have, say you have a live stream like this, but you're actually, I'm say painting a portrait of you. But at the end of the day, you have the portrait in your hands.
Could do a paint like a Bob Ross painting, but it can be somewhere else, and I'm here doing it on a Wacom tablet.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that'd be so cool. That'd be so
oil
cool.
paint or whatever. The other one, the next one after this is like, we are like, a lot of us play board games, but sometimes you can't be there. So you like Zoom or, remote in, but you want to roll your own dice, right?
Right. I don't trust anybody else. They suck.
Don't. So what you gonna do? Roll them at home and use your dice? No, you want to use the dice that are on the table.
Right.
So having a cup that you can remote and move around on your side, and somebody can just put the dice in the cup and then you can dump them out and roll them yourself. Is my next one.
Yep. I like it. I like it a lot.
So this is where it's like building all these different systems.
Right.
And I have other ones where it's like trying to actually help out during disasters as well. So that's the 20-year goal is like getting to a point where it's like, say there's a hurricane or something like that. You need people to clear the roads. You need people to like turn off gas lines and stuff like that. Well, that really shouldn't be people. That should be a remote person, and then have the actual people on the ground saving people.
As someone that lives in Florida, I'd rather rely on the rednecks to clear the roads than I would, the county, because the rednecks grab 3 chainsaws, their buddies, and a 6-pack, and they jump into their lifted pickup truck and they go clear the roads, and they do it faster than the county does.
Yeah.
But that's a Florida man thing.
Yeah.
That is not consistent with anywhere else.
Yeah. Oh,
it's always fun to see that, right? When they're like, now's our chance.
But yeah, being able to just be able to do those things where you're not adding to the problem. You're not using up resources as a volunteer.
Right.
So you're to volunteer where you don't have to fly down to someplace. You don't have to have a hotel. You don't have to food, water, all of that stuff. You set up, say, a mesh network and then fly things in, and then you can do all these things. Maybe have them also have detectors, heat sensors, so that you can start detecting where people are and things like that, and be able to send literally thousands of people as resources to an area very quickly.
I love that, right? Because that enables, and of course we have to have the robots to do it effectively, which I think we have. I just don't know.
That's the thing is, like, this is where I try to figure out a better term for it, because it's not robots. Because the robot problem is, like, you've dealt with CNC machines,
right,
and the 3D printers. They require a very defined space. So anything a little bit off, and it throws the whole program.
They get pretty
off.
pissed off, yeah.
If you have machine vision and all this other stuff, like, they're a little off. Whereas having a human control this and maybe have vision assist and some other things like that, you can have the person adapt to the situation in real time to the problems that are arising.
I really like it, man. I do. Are there any personal or professional ventures that you would like to pursue? Is that like anything you're working toward?
As far as, like, this is one of the part of this that I'm working on currently is motors, and dealing with trying to create a knowledge bank for motors as they refer to real-time human input.
Oh, okay.
So, like, stepper motors, we have that down where we can run a stepper motor for 12 hours straight and it never misses a beat.
Especially if they're got a Hall effect sensor to figure out encoding and all that.
But if you have just like a joystick or something like that, or a mouse or whatever, and you're trying to control it in real time, then like you would like a servo on an RC car,
right?
It drifts and it loses steps and it messes up on timing, and it has this whole host of problems that you wouldn't expect when you're trying to do that. So there isn't really a consistent knowledge on, like, how to control them the same way that you would if it was a servo motor.
Right. Wow. This has been eye-opening, right? You're pushing the limits in multiple different industries. So people can find you at shoreydesigns.com, right?
Yeah.
Where else can they find you, and how can they support your efforts to make really cool shit?
So I have Shorey Designs on both Twitter and on Instagram, and I believe it's just Shorey on Patreon as well. So
yeah, go kick up a couple of bucks, because you open source a lot of this stuff too, don't you?
I have a lot of the models on there, and then I also have, if you just message me on my Patreon, I can get you the link to my Arduino software. So I built, for myself, I needed a way of just being able to, I want to put an LED and I want to put a potentiometer and I want to be able to fade it up and fade it down. And I don't want to have to look it up every time I want to do this.
Oh, Arduino.
So I built a system, and it's a website where you basically attach that to one pin and you attach it to another, and you check predictive code, and then it looks at like, oh, you have one LED and you have one potentiometer.
Right.
Let me hook the LED to the potentiometer and write the code for you. And then you can just copy and paste that into your Arduino IDE.
If you play with Arduino, you need that program. Straight up, as far as I'm concerned, that makes life a lot better. Any way to make Arduino programming easier, I think, is a winning idea as it stands.
So same thing with like a servo motor. I have like the servo driver board. You put the servo driver board in, you put the servo in, you put a potentiometer in, and it will write the code for, if you move the potentiometer, it moves the servo, you know?
Wow.
So it's like, you don't have to like refigure out how to do it, because it's like, that's one of the things is Arduino is great, but all the example codes, they don't play well with each other. So it's like, I want to do this thing, but I also want to have an LED. And then it's like, well, the pins are the same, so I can't write that. And the other one that I wrote in, which was super important to me, is I have a check mark box if you want to use delay. So if you don't want to use delay in your code, you check that, and then it will write the entire thing without any delays in the code.
That's astounding to me. That's astounding. Do you have any final thoughts before we call this one? Because I think we're kind of coming up there where we've been about an hour and, I would say, an hour and 42 minutes, but we had that like 3-minute power outage on my side.
I'll show you one last thing that you may want to try.
Oh,
so
no.
It's like this motor thing. I don't have it plugged in, unfortunately, but this can be used for like something like this, but it can also be used for a speaker, is to have the magnet on here, and then you 3D print on fabric. And if you need covers for your speakers that are mesh, just 3D print the frame.
You know me too well, sir. I've been in contact with the name's I'm gonna get hell for this. Who's the guy that does the 3D printing speakers? We've been in contact and I forget his name, but we are gonna be doing some 3D printed speakers coming up, and we're gonna be using their kit. So and apparently you, sir, have made a super fan out of Carlos, so that's pretty cool. Carlos has been hanging out in the in the YouTube chat as we've been working. So.
I'm really glad I was able to share everything, and thank you.
Hey, we appreciate you coming out. I mean, this was a lot of fun. I'm really glad we got to do this, because, like, well, one, we had that weird technical difficulty, but I love the work that you do. And I think the big thing about makers is we don't ever get to show it off enough. And the things that we're really proud of internally may not be the things that everybody else think is really, really cool. And as makers, we recognize the amount of effort that's put into somebody else's project and can understand it from their level too.
Yeah, because it's like a lot of people, won't get how difficult this is, but it's like you immediately see, it's like, oh, this was not an easy print.
No, Dave, that's not an easy print to begin with. Then you add fabric and you take it up to the nines. Well, this has been awesome, David. Thank you so much for your time. Do you know my outro?
Do not.
I always ask. I always have to ask the guests. I'm like, all right, how much research did you do? That's all we got for you guys today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Season 2, episode 15 with David Shorey. Have a good one.